الله أكبر حي على الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر.
Rise, giving the most high praise to Allah and the highest honors to his prophet, Prophet LamadahYah Bey. I also like to extend honors to our Moorish flag, which reminds us of the five highest principles known to man, which are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also like to extend honors to our Sheikh staff, our vanguard to keep the peace, our members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and everyone else, all those things. Islam. I will start off by reading chapter 25, and if you know it by memory, you can recite it with me as well. And it reads, A Holy Covenant, chapter 25, A Holy Covenant of the Asiatic Nation. Ye are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and the breast of one mother hath given you suck. Let the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not a stranger before thine own blood. If thy brother is in adversity, assist him. If thy sister is in trouble, forsake her not. So shall the fortunes of thy father contribute to the support of his whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other.
Islam.
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 Islam. And I also like to extend honors to the brothers who have volunteered to come out and help tomorrow morning. And that's a demonstration of chapter 25. And now, and I want to draw from our prophet Muhammad. So, Prophet Muhammad, because there's a lot of conversation going on about what we should call ourselves and who we are here in America, and how should we trace ourselves back, and how should we begin to trace ourselves back. So I want to draw from the Holy Quran of Muhammad of Mecca, Surah 27. Ayat 74 through 81. It says, and surely your Lord knows the things which they hide in their hearts, and those which they profess. There is nothing hidden in the heavens and the earth, but it is recorded in a book revealing the divine decree. Verily, this Quran explains to the children of Israel most of the things concerning which they are at variance. And surely this is a source of guidance and mercy for the believers. So I want to take a second to just kind of think of, why is this a source of mercy? Why is Allah revealing the things that we're at variance with, or the things we differ about, a mercy to us? Why is it a mercy to us? And I'll continue on. Verse 77. And surely, I read verse 77, but it says, and surely this is a source of guidance and mercy for the believers. Your Lord will rightly judge between them with his command. He is the Almighty, the All-Knowing. So put your trust in Allah, for surely you stand on manifest truth. Of course you cannot make the dead hear, nor can you make the deaf hear. Of course you cannot make the dead hear, nor the deaf hear your call when they retreat, turning their backs. And you cannot guide the blind out of their error. You can make only those to hear who believe in our messages, or who have faith in our messages, and so have surrendered themselves in submission. Islam.
Islam.
And so that is That's very important, because once we understand what we differ about, or once we understand what we think we're at variance about, we can come and sit down at the table together and reason together. And it says, Allah in the Quran says that we're separated into tribes and into nations so that we can recognize each other, not so that we can differ and we can bicker and, not understand each other. It's so that we can come together and recognize who we are as a nation.
Islam.
And I give honors to a Hebrew brother that invited us out to an event not too long ago. He extended honors to the Moors for being the civilizers, or the Moors for being the ones that are always upright. He extended honors to the Hebrew brothers and sisters for being the ones that make sure that they abide by the law, make sure that they adhere to the law, adhere to the law, statutes, and commandments. He gave honors to the Ifa community for being the ones that can access that deep spirituality, that has a deep understanding of spirituality and spiritual things, and the different attributes of Allah through the Orishas. So my next question is, actually one of our keys is, why are we Moorish American? Islam.
Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America.
Islam, because we are descendants of Moroccans born in America. So oftentimes we think of, we want to go back to being Egyptian, or we want to go back to being other great civilizations. We want to take credit for being the rulers of other great civilizations, but we're skipping over our most immediate ancestors,
Islam.
our most immediate forefathers.
Islam.
The first nation, the first empire to recognize the United States was the Moorish Empire.
Islam.
So that's our immediate ancestors. And I say this all the time, going back and taking hold to all of these other more ancient civilizations is like giving honor to your great-great-grandfather, but not giving honor to your father. You have to give honors to your mother and father. You can't dishonor your mother and father and think that the spirit of your great-grandfather or your great-great-grandfather will be with you.
Islam.
We have to give honor to that immediate ancestor. So we understand that we're Moorish American because we're direct descendants of Moroccans born here in America.
Islam.
So right now we like to label ourselves all kind of different things. We like to create names. We like to take hold of names that existed years and years ago, which we still honor those legacies. We still honor those nations. We still honor those empires. But like I said, we have to honor that immediate forefather. So right now we have put ourselves into this label of independent families. And I'm going to go into a book that I've been reading for some time now, The Law of Nations by Emery Vattel. And I'm going to read first what the book describes a nation or a state as. It says, a nation or a state is, as has been said at the beginning of this work, a body politic or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. I'll read that again. It says, a nation or a state is, as has been said at the beginning of this work, a body politic or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. I'll read it one more time. A nation or state is, as has been said at the beginning of this work, a body politic or a society of men united together for the purpose of promoting their mutual safety and advantage by their combined strength. So right now, when we're clinging on to all of these different names and these different titles and these different attributes, we're not united. One, we're not united, and also we can't, when we're not united, we can't promote our mutual safety and our own advantage. We can't have, we hear all the time that we as Asiatics can't be racist because you have to have power, you have to be empowered to be racist. And to a certain extent, that's true. We can't promote our own personal image. Somebody else is putting out images of us right now,
Right.
which is why when other nations see us, all they think about is Medea or the Real Housewives of Atlanta or things like that. They don't see the images that we portray because we're not in the media. We're not promoting who we are as a nation because we're not united. Islam. Right now, what we've broken ourselves down into is like independent, like individuals per se. Like we're individuals. I can do it all on my own. I'm going to do it by myself. Nobody's going to know that I'm struggling with this particular thing. All I have to worry about is me and mine and nobody else. That's what the Asiatic community as a whole, that's the mindset that we have, the Asiatic community as a whole. And here's what this book, The Law of Nations, this is what the Family of Nations says about independent families in a country. It says independent families in a country. When several independent families are settled in a country, they possess the free dominion, but without sovereignty, since they do not form a political society. Nobody can seize the empire of that country, since this would be reducing those families to subjugation against their will. And no man has the right to command men who are born free unless they voluntarily submit to him. If those families have fixed settlements, the place possessed by each is the peculiar property of that family. The rest of the country, of which they make no use, being left in the primitive state of communion, belongs to the first occupant. Whoever chooses to settle there may lawfully take possession of it. So in this is saying, this is why they're allowed to come into our communities. We say, okay, the Indians and the Chinese people, they always want to come and set up businesses. People will say, in our hood. You know, no, it's not ours. It doesn't belong to us. We are considered independent families as long as we're looking out for just me and mine.
Talk about it.
Unless you belong to a community, unless you belong to a group, unless you belong to a temple, then you don't have that concept of I have to look out for not just myself and my immediate family, but also my extended family, my society, my community. Families wandering in a country as the nations of shepherds and ranging through it as their wants require, possess it in common. It belongs to them, to the exclusion of all other nations. And we cannot, without injustice, deprive them of the tracts of country of which they make use. But let us here recollect what we have said more than once. So this is about to go into another degree. So we have the independent families that settle in a particular place, and then you have the independent family who wanders about, like the nomads, the travelers. And then this is going into another degree. And the language sounds very familiar. It should sound very familiar. The savages of North America had no right to appropriate all that vast continent to themselves. Who is this speaking about? This is speaking about us as Negro, blacks, and colors. This is speaking about us when we lost the sense of ourselves. This is speaking about us when we want to skip over our immediate ancestors and go back and try to link ourselves back to something that we have no connection to without tracing ourselves back through our entire lineage. The savages of North America had no right to appropriate all that vast continent to themselves, and since they were unable to inhabit the whole of those regions, other nations might without injustice settle in some parts of them, provided they left the natives a sufficiency of land. If the pastoral Arabs would carefully cultivate the soil, a less space might be sufficient for them. So this is speaking about, quote unquote, what they are calling savages in North America. And it refers to them as Arabs. This is not speaking about the pale Arabs. This is speaking about us over here. And I'll read that section again. It says, the savages of North America had no right to appropriate all that vast continent to themselves. And since they were unable to inhabit the whole of those regions, other nations might without injustice settle in some parts of them, provided they left the natives of sufficiency of land. If the pastoral Arabs would carefully cultivate the soil, a less space might be sufficient for them. And this reminds me of when our prophet speaks about, which I'll read right after this, when our prophet speaks about basically anything in the hands of a fool will be used to his demise, but anything in the hands of a wise man will be used to his benefit. Nevertheless, no other nation has the right to narrow their boundaries unless she be under an absolute want of land. For in short, they possess their country. They make use of it after their manner. They reap from it an advantage suitable to their manner of life, respecting which they have no laws to receive from anyone. In a case of pressing necessity, I think people might, without injustice, settle in a part of that country on teaching the Arabs the means of rendering it, by the cultivation of the earth, sufficient for their own wants to those of the new heavens. So this is still going on today. You have people, you have different nations coming into our communities, or what we call our communities, and trying to teach us how to live or how to use our land how they see fit. We're not in control of our own communities. And because we're not in control of our own communities, that's what allows those people to come in and set up these Chinese stores and these liquor stores and these gas stations and all of these different companies or all of these different businesses and use it to their benefit. It may happen that a nation is contented with possessing only certain places or appropriating to itself certain rights in a country that has not an owner, without being solicitous to take possession of the whole country. In this case, another nation may take possession of what the first has neglected. But this cannot be done without allowing all the rights acquired by the first to subsist in their full and absolute independence. In such cases, it is proper that regulations should be made by treaty, and this precaution is seldom neglected among civilized nations. So we understand that we had certain treaties, and we still have those treaties in place. But what happened is we were labeled, like it says in here, we were labeled as savages. And so when you make a treaty with a savage, you have no obligation to respect that treaty. You don't have obligation to keep your word with someone who's considered a beast. So it's important for us to raise ourselves up, to be free men, as it spoke about, free men and women, as it spoke about before, because then we have certain rights. Then it would be unjust for someone to come into our territory, to come into our land, to come into our homes, and to try to set up institutions that don't benefit us. It wouldn't happen. It's just like if we go into a Jewish community or a Chinese community, they're not going to just make you leave, but they will make you feel very uncomfortable. You will feel like you don't belong. And that's the same thing that we have to have for us. That's the same thing that we're instituting for us. That's what this temple is an institution founded for our divine salvation, for our what is it? The divine and earthly salvation. So it has a divine side and it has a national side. This is not, like our chairman always says, a social club. This is not just some other religious institution that you come in to get a few degrees and then you go back out. This is our institution for us to build. This is our foundation for us to build our home on, for us to build our society on. And this is where families come, groups of families, independent families come into the temple so that we can protect our rights and promote our own interest. And I'm going to read also from chapter 40, and I'm going to read from verses 4 through 6. And it just kind of touches on this as well. And then I'll yield the floor back. And this is from chapter 40, is the holy instructions from the prophet, the instability of man. And it says, the man who neglected his present concerns to resolve how he will behave when greater, feedeth himself with wind, while his bread is eaten by another. That sounds a lot like what we just read. We're neglecting our land. We're neglecting our territory. This is ours out here. This is our community. These are our people. So we shouldn't look outside and see Europeans, as our grand governor always says, feeding them bologna sandwiches. We should be the ones out there telling them about their nationality and birthrights and who they are, so that they can properly cultivate their own community. This is their community here. They live in this particular community. But these are our people, so we should teach them those fundamental principles necessary to live as productive citizens. Verse 5, act as becometh thee in thy present station, and in more exalted ones thy face shall not be ashamed. What blindeth the eye, or what hideth the heart of man from himself, like vanity? Lo, when thou seest not thyself, then others discover thee most plainly. And it says, what blindeth the eye, or what hideth the heart of man from himself, like vanity. When we have these conversations with our brothers and sisters about who we are and where we come from, if initially our intent is not unity, it's just to be right, that conversation is considered vanity. It's vain. We shouldn't be having it. Right. We should be learning from each other. We should be learning from our Hebrew brothers and sisters. We should be learning from our brothers and sisters that are a part of the Ifa community. We should be learning from our Nuwapian brothers and sisters. We should be learning from our brothers and sisters that are a part of the Nation of Islam. We can learn from all of these brothers and sisters, but at that point, when our ego takes the lead, that conversation is now vanity. And it says when we're in that state, when we're in that divisive state, when we can't unify with each other, lo, when thou seest not thyself, then others discover thee most plainly. And there's no coincidence that our prophet here used that word discover, because they say Christopher Columbus did what to America? He discovered America. That's speaking about these so-called savages in North America, who they also referred to as Arabs in the same article, in the same excerpt, that's speaking about them. So when Christopher Columbus came and quote-unquote discovered America, he discovered that we were divided. He discovered our own nakedness, where we couldn't even see ourselves, where we were warring against each other. And they used that. So we have to, when we come together, we have to really sit down and reason. And our reason has to be founded by something. It has to be backed by something. It has to have a foundation. We have to have something, a medium. This is what we're governed by as Moorish Americans. And we have our Torah, we have all of our holy books, we have our Quran and Muhammad. And we have to use these degrees in order to come together. And we have to set our ego aside, and we have to really reason and make sure the things that we're saying make sense.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Hayya ala salah. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.